Hi everybody, welcome to Whole30 Day 19. I'm just getting so excited every time I say the number because the days are ticking by and I'm making it. I hope you are too. And I'll tell you what, it is meals like this one that I am about to prepare for you that have gotten me through this Whole30. I think if you do not have a meal to look forward to that is that sounds good to you, that sounds tasty and delicious and satisfying, it's going to be really hard to stick with any kind of diet, be it an elimination diet or just you need to lose some weight, so you're doing some sort of weight loss diet. I don't think you can do it if you don't have food to look forward to. Excuse me, I'm still a little bit froggy, but I'm getting sort of my voice back today. And you know, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but my husband makes fun of me because I'll say sometimes when I'm going to bed, I can't wait to get up in the morning and have my coffee. I just love I love my morning coffee. I love the routine that means. And so I love to have something to look forward to in general, but also in terms of my meals. And I know there are people who just really don't care about food, care about eating, but I think that's crazy. And I am certainly not one of those people. So anyway, all of the meals that I have made so far, up to day 19, have been good. Some of them have been great. And obviously, not all are great. Some are better than others. But this one is great. And I know it's great because, whoops, I had it for lunch today. So, I'm going to get my vegetables started because they take a little bit longer, I think, than my fish. And also, my fish needs to go in the oven at a lower temperature than I want my vegetables to cook. So I really want my veggies mostly done when I'm at that point with my fish. So I'm just doing roasted vegetables tonight. This recipe is on my website. I've made it before, I think, on Facebook Live. So there should be a video floating around up there on my YouTube channel somewhere. But I'm doing it again, so you're just going to see me prepare it. And I've got some of my bacon drippings, and I added a little avocado oil because I didn't want to quite use up all of my bacon drippings. So I'm just going to put this in the oven to heat up. My oven is coming up to 425. I want that the bacon drippings to melt for me. And then I'm going to, see, I'm cubing up my sweet potatoes. So we're about 1/4 to 1/2 inch cubes. And even at that, they're going to take a little longer to cook than my other veggies, which are all pretty soft. And so I'm going to give them a head start of about 5 to 7 minutes. So, excuse me, I put everything in the bowl so you can see what I'm making. Oh my goodness, I washed these mushrooms and then I feel like I'm always finding more dirty spots. That drives me crazy. So you can see I have in here just a bunch of carrots I just poured out of the bag. These little sliced carrots my kids like to eat. Occasionally there will be a bad one in there, so just check for that. And everything else, all the other vegetables besides the sweet potatoes, will cook for the same amount of time, or I'm at least cooking them for the same amount of time. So they're just all going to go in this bowl to kind of be out of the way. So I've got about a 1/2 package of mushrooms. This roasted vegetables recipe is like clean out the crisper drawer. If you have one zucchini, like here, I bought a package of broccoli and I had used all of it, but that one little section, I had used most of my mushrooms. I had used most of this onion, and it actually had a bad spot, so I even cut more of that out. So I've just got little bits and pieces of a whole bunch of different vegetables, and those are all going in. And here was a pepper out of my garden that is small, but it had a bug got to it, and so it was going to go bad if I left it on the plant. So I just picked it. So it's a little small guy. I always make my peppers big because I can't eat a lot of bell pepper. That makes it easier for me to pick them out. So my broccoli, I really want a good amount of stem on there. was a little bit bad. That one's a little bit bad. In the trash they go. These guys are fine. Whoops, that one's a little bit bad. Don't throw out the whole thing because there's one little bad section. You can probably cut that piece off. Also, broccoli is great roasted, but it will burn. So don't cook it too long at too high of a temperature, or cut it into too small pieces. So I just said that, and I'm getting some small pieces because there are a couple bad spots in there that I need to pick around. So if it gets a little too dark in the oven, then either we'll just eat it that way anyway, or I'll pick that out. So let me finish slicing up, all the rest, and then I'll get my sweet potatoes on. While I am slicing the zucchini, I'm going to tell you about this dish I'm making tonight. This is a super special recipe. Actually, as I'm about to make it exactly, I have never made it before, but I did practice it. I have a recipe that's very similar on my website, and it just uses chicken. And I'm doing fish tonight because I have this beautiful red snapper we brought home from the beach a little while ago. It's been in the freezer, and I just wanted to use it before too much time went by. And so I had never made this dish exactly like this, and so I went to Whole Foods at lunch today. I dropped my kids off. They take some classes at a local camp once a week, and I dropped them at their classes, and then I went and picked up a nice piece of catfish, which I think a lot of people will say, oh, I don't like catfish, it's kind of strong, but there are different kinds, and the one that we typically get here that I can buy is really mild, and it's kind of dense, and it's really yummy. So I went and got just one little piece of catfish and made this dish as a practice for lunch, and I ate it, and it was so good, and so I'm so excited to share it with you. I'll keep talking in just a minute, but let me get my tray out. So my bacon drippings have all melted. I'm just going to swirl that all around, mix it with avocado oil, and I'm going to carefully put my sweet potato on so it doesn't splash the oil on me. So my husband and I got engaged at Disney World. It was 2001, the fall of 2001. The terrorist attacks had just happened, and there was nobody at the parks. I mean, if you have ever taken your family to Disney World and you've read different websites about, what's the best time to go, when is it the least crowded, whatever, and they'll tell you, oh, this is the least crowded time of the year to go. It is nothing like it was when we went. You could walk around the park. You didn't have to run. There was no Fast Pass. I don't believe there was Fast Pass yet at the time. And we rode everything multiple times in one day. It was amazing. But as a part of that trip, I had been to Disney World for a couple days when I was very young. So it was just the Magic Kingdom at that time. So I hadn't been to any of the other parks, Epcot or Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom. All right, so my sweet potatoes are on. You saw me toss them around, a little salt and pepper. They're going in the oven. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and then I'll add my other veggies. Okay, now I'm going to get started with the rest of my dish. I'm going to continue my story, and I'll just tell it to you as I'm cooking along. So let me move these things around so I can get my burner on. So not only did we go to Disney World and visit all the Disney parks, but we also went to Universal. Universal has a couple different parks, and again, it's like totally different than it was when we were there, but we went to the two parks, and one of them has some restaurants right there, and there was an Emeril's restaurant. You know who I mean when I say Emeril? Bam! From the early days of the Food Network. So that's when I watched the Food Network. And so I was a big fan of Emeril. I was like, oh, Emeril has a restaurant right there. We have to go. So it was so funny. We made reservations for lunch at Emeril's, and we were the only people in the restaurant. I mean, literally the only people in the restaurant. Okay, this is palm shortening. It is a coconut product. I buy mine from Tropical Traditions online because it's sustainably sourced. I use it all the time in my baking. It makes nice, light, fluffy baked goods, and it is neutral in taste. You can deep fry in it even, so you can cook to a very high temperature with the palm shortening. And that's just what I felt like using tonight. I just wanted to show you some different types of cooking fats. So that's the one we're using today. So I'm not going to tell you my recipe yet. I'm going to finish my story. So we go in and have lunch at Emerald's, and we are not fancy schmancy people. I don't know if you can tell that by listening to any of my videos, but we enjoy a really nice dinner out, but we do not go out very often, and we certainly don't go out and eat expensively very often, but we do appreciate gourmet food. Boy, that is a tough shallot. I probably need to sharpen my knife. So we go in and eat our lunch at Emerald's, and I have pecan encrusted. My husband keeps saying grouper, but I think it was red snapper. It was some kind of fish. And you know, restaurants like that, it comes with some sort of relish on top and a sauce and this garnish and this garnish. And it was so good. I mean, it was unbelievably good. So we asked for the recipe, and lo and behold, they gave us the recipe. Well, this was all of over 16, yeah, coming up on 16 years ago. And I have never made it. Never, ever. And in fact, I have lost the recipe. And I know that someday when we move from this house, I will find that piece of paper. But it was, you know, not before the internet, but it was before the internet had every piece of information on it. And so if they didn't just say, oh, go find it on our website, they probably didn't have a website. And so I have this piece of paper floating around someplace with the recipe for that dish. And my husband always teases me, oh, what you making? You making that pecan encrusted grouper? Or, like, oh, yeah, ha. Because the recipe was very complicated. I mean, it was pages of ingredients, pages of instructions, and it was very daunting to look at. Well, so when we were leaving the beach, and I went to get some shrimp from the fisherman there, which you've seen me cook so far, but they also had red snapper, and it was, I mean, it's so cheap. Red snapper here in Raleigh is so expensive, and you have to buy the whole fish, and they won't fillet it for you for free, and so I just never ever buy it, although we've gone on a couple of cruises, and we've had red snapper on the cruises, and my son says it's his favorite fish. So anyway, we love it, and they had red snapper, and they would fillet it for you for free. So I was all about that. So we got 2 red snapper. So that's our fish tonight. And when I was thinking about my meals that I was going to make for the Whole30, I wanted to make my nut crusted chicken, which is a recipe that's been on my blog for, I don't know, probably a year. It's really good. It's a little more labor intensive, so it's a special occasion dish, in my opinion. But it is super, super tasty. It has this really yummy, flavorful, nutty coating, and it is totally paleo. It is totally Whole30. It's completely acceptable for this diet. So I thought, oh, I'm going to use my red snapper from the beach, and I want to make Emerald's pecan encrusted red snapper. So I go online and I look for a recipe. Okay, there is the timer for my veggies. So I'm going to pull that out and add the rest of my vegetables. That's a lot of vegetables. We definitely need to add salt and pepper. And we definitely want to toss that around. All my veggies are cold. My tray is hot, so I'm being careful. Okay, so here's my really big full tray of veggies going in. This will take probably 30 minutes to get how I want it, so we got to get it in the oven. So I found a recipe from Emerald's website, which of course, very stupidly, I looked through all of the recipes, and they have tons of dessert recipes that look amazing. And there were 4 or 5 that were even gluten-free. I was really surprised. But I just looked at them and was like, that looks good. Maybe I'll see if I can paleoify that at some point in the future. But the one that I printed out was called Pecan Encrusted Fish with Pecan Crab Relish. And it is not the same as the one we had at Emerald's way back 16 years ago. However, it's similar, and so I just took a look at it, and confirmed that, yeah, they're using the same method that I used in my pecan crusted or nut crusted chicken. So I'm on the right track with my recipe idea. And so it's kind of a combination of this Emerald's recipe and my own nut crusted chicken recipe that I'm applying to this beautiful red snapper. So I don't know if you can see my snapper there, but it has skin on it. So they filleted it for me, and I didn't even look until I got it out of the freezer a couple days ago and noticed that it does indeed have skin, which I'm not super excited about, and I wish I had noticed that before so that I could have asked them to take the skin off. So I thought I would try, and it started just ripping. It started just ripping the fish, so I quit. And we're just gonna do it with the skin on, and maybe it'll be delicious, and we'll want to eat the skin, and maybe it won't, and we'll just sort of pick the flesh off of the other side. But that's what we're left with. So what I'm making here is a breading, and then I'm going to saute my fish. So I'm actually having to cook some of the ingredients for my breading. And I'm starting with these shallots. I had 2 small shallots that I diced as finely as I can, just on my own with my knife. I could have run them through my food processor, but I didn't. And I'm cooking them up in that couple tablespoons of palm shortening. And I'm going to give those a few minutes and let them really get nice and soft, translucent, and even a little bit brown. And then I'm going to add the other dry ingredients. So here is the second component of my breading. We'll have a 3-step breading. We will, like in Emerald's recipe or most non-paleo breading recipes, you'll find a 3-step method, and you'll dredge your food in flour. So instead of flour, we're using arrowroot starch, and then a liquid component, which is typically egg and some kind of milk. So I have an egg and a little bit of coconut milk. So remember, I opened my coconut milk last night and used some of the cream for the beef stroganoff, and I'm trying to use that up. So I used a little bit in my test batch at lunch today, and I'm using a little bit more now. And I'm actually just about out of my ranch dressing, that if you're paying attention to my menus, anytime I eat a salad, I'm eating with the ranch dressing, because it's a Whole30 approved. I have the ingredients for it. I like it. So I'm just sticking with that. Because most of my dressings, I put a little bit of sweetener in. Like I have a creamy balsamic on my website. It's really, really good. But the balsamic is so sharp and acidic, I think it needs a little bit of sweetener. So I'm not making that one. I made some honey mustard without the sweetener, and it was okay, but it's definitely better with some honey in it. But the ranch doesn't naturally have any sweetener in it, and it's great just like that. So that's the one I'm sticking with. So anyway, my ranch takes some coconut milk, so I'll probably use up the rest of this with making another batch of that, because I'm on day 19, which means I still have 11 more days to go. So I got some more salads in my future. All right, so here is the second part of my batter, the egg. Here's the first part, which is just going to be a little bit of arrowroot. It doesn't take much because I just want a light dusting, and I'm even going to then tap off the excess. So at most 1/4 cup. And you really don't have to measure it. Just put a little bit in the pan and then leave this nearby. In case you end up needing some more, you can add a little bit more pretty easily. So my shallots are getting a little bit brown. They're really, really in a good place right now. And now I need to get my nuts going. So I have 1.5 cups of pecans. Now, in my nut crusted chicken recipe, it calls for a mixture of, just a mix of nuts. And I think I said I like walnuts and almonds, which I do like walnuts and almonds. Walnuts, almonds, and pecans are 3 nuts my son is not allergic to. But I am trying to make Emerald's recipe, and that was definitely a pecan dish. So I'm using, which one did I use? I'm using pecans. I'm trying to make sure I keep the one spatula clean, or only being used in the palm shortening, because if I were to stir this and then stick that back in my tub of palm shortening, I'm contaminating my palm shortening and it will actually start to go bad. So I want to make sure I always scoop in there with a clean utensil or one that has only been used recently in the palm shortening. So I'm not going to add any more fat. I have plenty of oil in there, and the nuts of course contain some oil. So I'm just going to toss this around and let this start cooking. It's going to get a little clumpy, wipe that off. Okay, and my seasoning tonight is going to be salt and pepper. So I'm going to put a little salt in my arrowroot because that's what's seasoning our fish. So a little bit of salt in here. I'm going to put a little pepper in here. Sorry, all of this is seasoning the fish, but this is just going right on the fish. It's the first layer, so I want it to have some seasoning. So I'm going to add some pepper to this skillet. And then I'm using my Louisiana fish fry Cajun seasoning, which I used this on the jambalaya back in week 2, I think. And it's so flavorful. I love the flavor of it. And Emerald's recipe uses what he calls Creole seasoning. So this is Cajun seasoning. It's similar. We discussed already that I know that it's gluten-free, and I love the flavor of it. So this is what I'm using for the main flavor. I think it'll be really delicious. Though I have to be careful not to use too much because it is kind of spicy and it is kind of salty. So I just sprinkled a little bit in. So I'm going to let this keep toasting. And let me just check my recipe, make sure I need garlic in there. I knew there was something else. And again, oh, here it is. I keep this countertop. I love this granite, but stuff gets lost on it really easily. And I had some garlic out at lunch today, and I could not find it until I washed my counter, and then I washed it right onto the floor. Like, there it was. So I lost it again. So my recipe calls for, I believe, 1 clove of garlic. And again, I feel like I keep saying this, I'm at the end of my head of garlic. I have these teeny tiny little ones. So I'm going to use 2 or 3. This is just 1. But I'll put the 1 with this teeny tiny little one that I had. And that'll be great. I actually used 2 of those tiny little ones in my lunch today, and it wasn't too garlicky. And I feel like I have my taste back after having my cold, and so I feel like I can genuinely taste these foods. So just like how we toasted our nuts when we were making our pesto way back on week 1, I can smell my nuts when they start toasting, and so I'm going to be using my sense of smell and sight to keep an eye on my my breading here. So I want my garlic pretty small. Again, I've said before, I'm not super great at getting garlic really small because it just runs away from me. And I've seen people put salt on it and then sort of run their knife across it like this, but I don't know, that never works for me. It just gets clumped up on the knife like this. So I just will run my knife back and forth a few times, get it as small as I can, and it will be fine. You can, of course, you can buy crushed garlic in a jar, and just make sure there aren't other ingredients in there, that it's just garlic. Whenever I do that, I don't know, it ends up getting lost in the fridge and it goes bad, and so I just buy a head of garlic every couple of weeks, and we're fine with that. Okay, so in goes my garlic. I didn't want to add my garlic with the shallots because they would have burned in that amount of time. But now that I have all the nuts in there, it'll be perfect. And I think I'm done chopping. Oh no, I need to cut my fish down to a little bit smaller fillets. So here I had a little bit left over from my lunch. So I just saved that because it's nuts, and nuts are expensive, and I didn't want to throw it out, and I knew I was making this again. So I'm just going to toss that in. And the only other thing we're going to add to this, once it finishes browning, so here are my stations: arrowroot, milk and egg, and then nut topping. I'm going to, so you can see I used a little bit of this zest for my lunch recipe testing today, and I'm going to just finish zesting this guy. This lemon has seen better days. It got stuck at the bottom of my fruit bowl, so it's kind of dehydrated on the outside. But the lemon zest is still full of flavor. It's perfect. So I'm just going to zest the rest of this. Whenever a recipe calls for something like a teaspoon of lemon zest, which I have a couple recipes that do that, I'm sorry. I find that really irritating because it's a difficult ingredient to measure, to scoop up and get in your measuring spoon. So generally I try now to just say, use the zest of 1 lemon or a half a lemon or 2 lemons, or, you know, whatever, kind of go like that. All right, so I'm going to keep this going. I turned it up a little bit. It is 90 degrees today again, and I am so sick of it, but supposedly the weather is turning this weekend, and actually tomorrow is supposed to get nice tomorrow. So I'm going to show you. I'm probably going to regret doing this, but like around the edges, it just peels off. And so I started it and I thought, oh, it's just going to peel off. That's fantastic. But then as I got a little bit further, then it was sticking and it started pulling at the flesh. And I just didn't want to waste, any of this precious fish. So we're just going to leave this again. I need my scissors, which I used them before to do this. Fish skin is tough. It's a little bit hard to cut. But I just wanted to show you how, oh, it seems like it's just going to come right off, and then it doesn't. They're tricking us. These beautiful fillets, she took the, excuse me, she took the bones out for me. So I'm going to just cut these down into nice portion sizes. Here's the one I mostly got the skin off of. But it was fighting with me, so we just left. I just decided to leave it. See, it seems like that's a scale. I definitely don't want to be eating any scales. It's so pretty, isn't it? And this just came right out of the ocean. Right where we were. It was awesome. I just love it. I don't honestly know how the breading is going to stick on this skin. It may not stick very well. And if it doesn't, then we'll just have the breading on the one side. But I'm going to try. Alright, so, oh yeah, that's starting to get really dark right in the center where it's on the burner. And I don't want it to burn because burned nuts do not taste good. And it actually burned I didn't burn it at this stage, but I burned it when I was cooking it a little bit. Earlier today, and it still tasted great. It was so good, but it's not ideal. You don't want it to be burned. I want to taste this, so I'm going to pour this into my pan with my lemon zest. And when the hot nut filling hits the lemon zest, it's going to just release those oils in the lemon, and you're going to smell your lemon zest. It smells really good. Let me turn that off because I'm not quite ready for it. It's going to take me a minute to get all these pieces breaded, or enough for one batch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some more palm shortening in my skillet. Just use that same skillet. I cleaned it out really well with my spatula actually, so I'm not even going to bother wiping it out with a paper towel. So let me toss this in, and I'm going to taste it because this is my seasoning. I'm not going to add additional salt and pepper to the fish while it's cooking. So this needs to taste good. So I'm going to give that a taste. I don't think I need this. Here's where I write down my notes. And I think I got it. Let me move that out of the way. I'm going to do my breading. I'm going to brown them on one side. I'm just stirring in my arrowroot so my salt and pepper is mixed in there. And then I'm going to take my fish out, and I'll put it in the oven. I don't think I'm going to be able to get all these in the skillet. That's why I said take it out. If I could fit them all in the skillet, I would brown the one side, I would flip it over, and then stick it in the oven right then. But I think I'm going to have to work in batches. So I'm going to put my skillet back on. I'm going to keep my palm shortening handy because I may need to add more. So again, I don't want to wipe this into my pan because my pan is dirty now and I don't want to contaminate my spatula. So let me taste my breading. I want to give it just another shake of this Creole seasoning. Not too much because it is mostly salt and it's salty enough. But I wanted a little bit more spice. Okay, so let me just swirl this around while my hands are still clean. So my fish goes in with another scale. Okay. My fish goes in my arrowroot, both sides. There's a little clump on there. We don't want any clumps, so just tap it off, and then we'll stick it in there. So we'll do a couple in the arrowroot. And the arrowroot and the egg are going to help the nuts to adhere. Run my fingers over and just make sure there aren't any more scales. Okay, so now we're ready for the egg, and we're going to do the same thing. I'll just allow the excess to drip off of there. This hand is dry, and I want to keep this hand. It has arrowroot on it, but it's otherwise dry, and I'm going to keep it that way for working with the nuts here. Turn my skillet back on. I'm going to want it on about medium because, again, I don't want my nuts to burn. So I patted the nut filling in, and I'm going to gently lay it in my skillet. So I'm going to pat it in, but shake it so any excess falls off. It's not sizzling. I would have preferred to hear it sizzle. So it's just not quite hot enough, or it's not quite hot enough on the edges. That's okay. It'll get there. And I'm really just focusing on, do you notice I put the fish, the flesh side down into my nut mixture, and then I'm pressing the nuts onto the top, and I'm not really worrying about pressing them onto the skin side. Okay, so allow any excess egg to drip off. And of course, my hands are totally messy, and I set my timer for 20 minutes on my vegetables just so I wouldn't completely lose track of time. And the timer just beeped, so, oh, you know what, I turned it off. Ding-a-ling. I can't tell these, the knobs on this countertop burner are not intuitive to me. Excuse me, both sides of the knob look exactly the same, so I can't tell what it's pointing at. I know, excuses, but that's the truth. All right, but I use this one because it is easier to video it and show you what I'm doing. So that's not ideal. You want your pan, you want your oil to be hot when you add your food to it anytime, not just for this recipe, because you don't want your food just sitting in oil. It'll be more likely to end up greasy, but I know how we're going to finish this, and it's not going to end up greasy, but regardless, that's not what you want. You want your pan going and hot. Okay, so I'm going to ignore that timer for just a second. I am running out of arrowroot here, but I think I can swirl around the edges of my pan and end up with enough. So do y'all know what I think about when I'm making these videos? I am thinking about that show, The Next Food Network Star, that comes on the Food Network. And we haven't had cable for years, but we have Netflix, and so it used to be on Netflix. All right, I'll show you my vegetables. You can see how they're getting nice and brown, and I'm going to just stir them around. Just make sure that oil is evenly distributed, the salt and pepper evenly distributed. and they're wet now. So like they've started to release their water. They're all vegetables, right? And that's good. They're cooking. And at this point, they're cooked and they're soft enough to eat, but I want them to brown. So just like this is kind of like a steamed or boiled vegetable, and that is not nearly as tasty. So they're going back in the oven. So when I'm cooking for you, I'm thinking about that show, the next Food Network star, and all the advice that the cooking experts are giving to the cooking show wannabes. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, what did they say? You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And when I'm watching the videos before we put them up online, just doing like final edits, or I'm not really editing, I'm making comments for my editor. I'm thinking, oh, I'm not smiling, I look so angry. What would Alton Brown have to say about this? And what would Jada have to say? So anyway, I'm trying to teach you and also be at least somewhat entertaining. We're sizzling now, and the breading is absorbing the oil. So we might need to add a little bit more, but it's fine for now. So let me finish my breading process here. So flip over these guys. Continue to let this egg drip off. I'm hoping I have enough nuts. I feel like whenever I do a breading like this, I get right down to the end, like, oh, I almost have enough, or I just ran out, or I totally misjudge and I end up with way too much. But I went with the amounts that I had used in my chicken recipe, and I had of course tested that multiple times, and the amounts were fine. So I was hoping that with about the same amount of fish as chicken, it would work out just right. And I'm running kind of low. I got one more piece here. And so this time, instead of putting skin side down, I'm going to put that nice fleshy side down to make sure we get enough coating on that pretty top side, the side we're definitely going to eat, because I'm still not sure we're going to eat the skin. I'm hoping we're going to be able to eat the skin, but I don't know for sure. So let me pick these up, use the rest of that on there, and it came out great. Alright, so I need to tend to what's happening in my skillet. I just have to clean up a little bit because I'm going to be bringing a serving dish over here, and I just can't stand the counter being dirty. I guess I'm a little bit OCD in that way. Okay, so I can tell, you can tell if you're looking overhead, this is what just drives me crazy about this burner thing, is that it definitely is hot right in the center and not around the edges. It's not distributing the heat very well. If I use a really good quality skillet, like one of my cast iron, it will, I feel like, get super hot. I just can't control the heat as well. So I'm just going to work with what I've got. So I turned all my pieces around. I'm not putting anything in the center. I'm cooking on that outer rim. And I flip them all around so they are evenly browning. And then I'm going to flip them over. And I'm going to get a tray out to kind of hold them until I can get them in the skillet. I should say until I get them back in the skillet and back in the oven. However, if they all fit on this little tray, I'll just put them in the oven on that tray. So let me see how we're doing. If we're browned evenly. Yeah. The breading is sticking nicely. There will be a little bit of the breading that will come off. Don't worry about that. But it should stick pretty well. I'm going to grab a paper towel so between batches I can wipe my skillet out, because like I said, it's burned in the center where it's particularly hot. And this is not a great skillet. So I don't want to add my new fish to already some burned stuff in there. Okay, so I got my paper towel ready. Can you see how delicious this looks? And it's so flavorful, that breading with the Cajun seasoning and the lemon zest, and of course the pecans, which are full of flavor on their own. It's just delicious. So the first side that we put down got more brown. The second side, I really just let it sear to let the breading adhere. And the nuts in here that are not burned, I'm going to scoop out and put on my tray. Alright, so you see how this got really burned in the center? So I do not want that hanging out. So I'm just going to wipe all that into my trash can. Okay. I'm going to add some fresh shortening. So again, this is palm shortening. I won't need any more, so I'm just going to scrape my spatula so I get it all. We'll run this around. It's nice and hot now. It should sizzle when we add this fish. So what I really should have done, when I put the fish in my nut coating, I put it skin side down so I could just really focus on pressing a good coating onto the fleshy side of the fish. But then when I put it in my skillet, I want to put my prettiest side down first. So I should have put then my fleshy side down, so the skin side will be facing me, because that is going to be my presentation side, and that is the side I want the prettiest coating on. And then also, that was our last piece where I was just running a little short on the breading. I can just scrape the last little bits out of my pan, and I'll press them on there, and it will have plenty of breading. It'll be perfectly fine. And I'll set it on that little pile in my pan of the extra bits that were scraped out of my skillet. And he'll have just as much breading as everybody else. Okay, I'm going to check my veggies one more time now that I have a second. I'll set them up here and show you how they're doing. That first 20 minutes, there's not a lot of browning happening, like I said. But at this point, it can start pretty quickly. So already, just from when I had them out 6 minutes ago, a lot of that water has evaporated, and they're going to start to brown and get a little bit crispy, which is exactly how I want them. That's the best. This is the best way to eat vegetables, I believe. So I'm going to grab out a zucchini, and I'll taste that when it cools and see if I need to add a little more salt to these guys. All right, back in the oven they go. So, like I told you at the outset, my vegetables need to cook at a high temperature, 400, 425, even 450. But I don't want my fish cooking at that high of a temperature. I really would like my fish at 300, 350 at the most. So my goal was to have my vegetables at least mostly done when it's time to get my fish in the oven, so that I can just turn my oven off, and it will have residual heat, of course, because I have it at 425 degrees. And it will finish cooking my fish through. My vegetables will stay hot, of course, but will quit cooking at such a high temperature. So you saw me, I just flipped it around again, so it's going to get brown on all sides. I'm just going to check the underneath because it's nuts and they'll brown pretty quickly. So already that one was ready. Let me check this one. This one needs just another minute. That one actually looks good. I'm going to flip it over. I put my lemon back here, and it won't look as pretty because I have taken the zest off, but I don't want to waste it. So I'm just going to cut this into wedges, and I'll serve it with our fish. You could make a little remoulade sauce or a tartar sauce, which they're very similar. Some slight differences in the ingredients, but they're both like a mayonnaise-based sauce. Remoulade would be more true to the Cajun nature of this dish. But I'm not, because I have, oh, this one needs to be flipped. There we go. Oh, look, it's perfect. Perfect. Because I have that ranch dressing that I'm going to serve with our salad, and people can just use a little bit of that as a sauce on their fish if they want it. I mean, the fish is so flavorful and it's not dry. It'll be nice and moist. It won't need a sauce. but you know, sauce is delicious, always. So we can just use some of that ranch dressing if somebody wants that. This is the seediest little lemon. That's terrible. I don't want to serve that to anybody, so I'm going to pick some of these seeds out. That would not look very nice as a garnish with just so full of seeds. Goodness gracious. All right, if you have started your Whole30, I would love to know how it's going. I didn't even tell you my good news. So let's see, today is day 19 and day 17, or I guess 17 night. I did not sleep. I don't know why. I've had this cold for a while and it's nothing new, but I'll tell you what, I did not sleep that night, hardly at all. And so I was really tired yesterday. Although I wasn't as tired as I was expecting to be, having really only slept a couple of hours, honestly. I was doing okay. I made it through the day. Let's just say that. I made it through the day. All right, so all my fish is on here. Let me look at the clock and see. My husband should be home anytime. So I'm going to turn the oven off on my vegetables and I'm going to put my fish in because it's not cooked. It needs to finish cooking through. But let me tell you my story because this is exciting. Last night I went to bed early because I had not slept the night before, and I slept great. My husband said that he heard me coughing some, but I wasn't even aware that I was coughing. And I slept a solid 9 hours. And then today I got up, I slept later than I wanted to. I had plans to meet a friend to work out at the Y, and I wanted to honor that commitment, both for her and for myself. You know, it's easier to do something like that when you have somebody that you're meeting. And I am a person who likes to take it slow in the morning. Like, I can get up early and all that, and I'm fine with that, but I want to be able to take my time with my coffee and my Bible study in the morning and just kind of getting my day going. And I didn't have time for that this morning, and my husband said, oh, I was working on these videos last night. I need you to watch this one so I can post it. So, I mean, I just rolled out of bed, I grabbed a cup of coffee real fast, and I started watching a video. And then I had to get my kids set up for school and take off for the Y. I didn't have anything to eat, which I usually don't have anything to eat before a morning workout. So I get home from the Y, and I'm sweaty, and I'm, you know, shower real quick and eat. And when I was getting dressed and getting ready for the day, I just felt like I had so much energy. I mean, boundless energy. And I thought, oh, this is the tiger blood. I have it. I'm so excited. And I was just kind of on fire all day. I felt great. And I'll tell you, I did have a cup of coffee this afternoon, but it certainly wasn't because I felt like I needed it. It was because I wanted it. I enjoyed it. That's part of my afternoon routine. So I really try to force myself to sit down and rest for a half an hour. And today I was having to read the book that we're discussing with our small group tonight. So I was like, I need to read the chapter, and I had my coffee. And then I got up again and started clearing out my closet. So day 19 for me, according to the Whole30 timeline, day 16 or 17 is when they say you can start feeling that. I don't like tiger blood. I don't know. There's something about that phrase I don't like. I prefer like the Energizer Bunny feeling. That's kind of how I felt. So that struck today, even with getting over a cold. So if you haven't felt it yet, hold on. I really believe it will come. When people talk about sort of a clear-headedness, I felt that today, and I'm very excited about that. So I'm hoping that you have the same success. So I'm going to pause, and I'll be back with a finished product for you in a few minutes. Okay, do you feel like you are watching Emerald? Okay, I'm so excited about this dinner. So you see our vegetables. They're so beautiful and brown. You see the nice caramelization on here. That's perfect. That's just exactly what we want. At least it's what I want. We have an extra guest for supper. One of my son's friends is here, and I know he's not a super fan of vegetables, so I'm hoping that he will enjoy the vegetables this way. I'm hoping he'll enjoy the fish. But you know what? I'm going to enjoy the fish. So if he doesn't, it is really not going to bother me. So I'm going to take this nice big juicy fillet right here. I'm actually going to, I don't want to do that one, that pretty one for my picture, but I want to cut in and make sure these are actually cooked all the way through. Fish, you know, cooks really quickly, but this was a meatier fish and I want to make sure it's cooked. So, you know that I have to taste it, and because I can't taste the one that I'm going to take a picture of, I just have to taste one of these extra ones. So I'm going to just give this a little taste and make sure it's going to be fit to serve my family. You know what? I don't think they're going to like it. So I think I'm going to have to just eat it all myself, and we'll make them scrambled eggs. I think that they would enjoy that just as well. No, I'm just kidding. It's delicious. It's amazing. It's even better than the one I had for lunch. So this is my ranch dressing. Like I told you, the dill and the chives and the lemon juice in here. It's delicious. It's the perfect thing to make a sauce with my fish. So let me get a little wedge of lemon, and we'll serve that alongside. And here is our day 19 Pecan Encrusted Red Snapper with roasted vegetables and salad, which is just greens out of the box, and some delicious ranch salad dressing. I know I have nuts in my teeth, but I don't even care because I'm about to eat a whole bunch more of this fish. So I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you again tomorrow for day 20.